New Edge Sword and Sorcery issue 3 is a 2025 release, came out at the very end of the year, and it is actually the 4th issue of this magazine. Don't be alarmed, there is an issue 0. Issue 0 is free. I have actually reviewed issues 0, 1, and 2 previously, so anyways, let's get into this one. This one is graced by an awesome cover art piece of Jarell Joiry. I didn't write down who made it, but maybe I'll try to put that in the description. But anyways, it is lovely, and of course opens with a table of contents and note from the editor, who muses on the definition and the genre, and then we get to the stories themselves. This, at least for the crowdfunding backers, get a story as a sticker or bookmark. This is The Barber of Rem Yum by Andrew Whalen. It's a flash fiction, of course. It's very nice. It's nicely weird. It's a mundane start. Ending is abrupt, and it's fine. It's not bad. This actually has a spot to be able to be stuck in at the very end of it, but I read it first. End of this magazine. So anyways, the first story itself in the magazine proper is Beating the Stars, Dying Hearts by Matt John. Lac Manon stops by a mushroom monger before ascending to a city in the sky. It has action. It is pretty firmly in the otherworldly and sublime category of the genre, with some grit and urine added. I like the Orb and the Ibit. It's not a bad story. The Betrayal of the Rhinoceros by Premi Muhammad is next. I've read one other story by this author, actually for a class. That was The Adventurer's Wife. And this revolves around the grand fortress, unimaginably called the Rhinoceros, which there's some irony there, I feel like, for the author. Shujar mans the wall and watches in solace. He is torn between betraying the queen and most in the Rhinoceros and helping the Duke, or more specifically an old love, Exec. It has 2 moments of bigger excitement involving explosives and giant ants. It is largely a story of internal conflict. It's not bad. I appreciate the focus. It's not really common in the genre. St. Fario's Feast by Thomas Ha is about a youth with their grandma. Their grandma is edgy and says the F word, and everyone says Juria Day. Anyways, this one really didn't land for me. It has some creatures which feel like dollar store horror movie-esque, and the plot is kind of man. I just didn't really care for it. The science fantasy aspects are too on the nose, and there's just some corny stuff in there. I've never really read anything by Ha, but I guess you can't win them all anyhow. Next we have Gravediggers of Carcassonne by John R. Foltz. Unsurprisingly, it's about 2 gravediggers. They act like they're going to dig fresh graves, but they're really in the cemetery to rob some graves. Of course, there are ghouls that keep most thieves away. I think beyond a little bit of romance, which was cute in a way, it didn't really work for me, though, that romance. But besides that, really, this was one of my favorites from the volume. And then we have Something Oath-like by Oliver Brackenbury. I've read this one before, actually, in A Book of Blades 2. It's very short. Edmund is a thief, but he comes not to this tomb to steal, but for something more personal. Vaux pursues him, but the relationship isn't so simple as good versus bad. And it's pretty much just a nice character moment. Again, very short, though. Then we have a section on flash fiction. There's a good variety here. I'll just really briefly mention these. I don't want this video to be too long, but we have The War God's Hound by Samantha Rich. We have Sister Soldier by R.L. Summerling, which I really like the flow of this one. We have Of Cabbages and Stone by Timaeus Bloom. I will say I'm partial to this one. It is my favorite story within the issue. But Tim, as a friend, and neatly enough, was kind enough to set this wee story in a world of my creation. But it's a story with a sense of humor and some weird stuff going on, which you don't see enough in the genre. This just humor to it, and it's just very well done. Tim is a great author. I'm just blown away every time I read anything, even if it's a very rough draft for him. Again, anyways, that's why it's here, though. So we have Against the Witch Prince Against the Witch Prince of Emdal by W.O. Ballmer, High Water by James Estes, and The Ferryman's Price by Melissa Burlock. Those are the rest, and each are good, really, and worth it. And they're, again, very short. I like it. They're refreshing in that sense. The last story is what the cover tells us of. It's Jarell Joiry. It is actually Jarell and Mirror of Truth by Molly Tanzer. Or rather, here, Jarell of Cockaigne, like cocaine, if it's spelled in there like a French-esque, but it's cocaine. If you don't know it, it's like a very common mythical world and like a medieval stuff. So it's like if you know the name, then you're gonna recognize immediately something fishy's going on. Besides the fact that she's not Jarell Jouari, obviously, she doesn't remember Jouari because of some sorcery, and this seems to be set actually after the Moore stories. It revolves around her lover and vizier Etizin and her friend Thevin. This one is a longer. It reads pretty swiftly though. The dialogue is very well done. The pace is good. The plot's solid and fitting. And new feeling in a sense. It's not as otherworldly as I would expect of Jarell, but it's still enjoyable. The ending is a little drawn out because it's set to resolve a couple things rather than just a single thing. But the very, very end, like the last paragraph, is a very nice homecoming, and I liked that. So it is difficult to compare to the original Jarell stories in some sense, though. Then comes the nonfiction section. The last two are an interview with Kirk A. Johnson, which I've already partaken of actually, and then a review of Shared World, which I may have to read myself at some point, but I don't really have much else to say on those right now. My first, in this section, actually, my first thoughts is from the Untrammeled Wilds by Jay Wolfe. This is about disability and fantasy and sword and sorcery. Specifically, it's not stuff I normally read, but it's very worthwhile and it's very short. Made me go tweak something I actually had in a current work in progress. And then second, we have the last bit to talk about here is the essay on Jessica Salmonson? I always want to say Salmonson, but it's Salmon, right? Anyways, by Brent Hammond. I really knew very little about her, and I gladly know more now. So it's nicely written. It's a nice reflection on this author as well, and editor and whatnot. Overall, it's a nice issue. Some good stuff, some less noteworthy stuff, but it is a magazine after all. And I do look forward to reading issue 4. It does remind me, especially when I'm reading my notes here, just how much I like Sword and Sorcery. So I'm happy I get to read Sword and Sorcery and review it. Anyways, Liam from Liam Glacium. I'll catch you next time.